Hello, good evening. Welcome to Only Stupid Answers. My name is Sam Basher.
And I'm DJ Will
You're going to be watching this in the morning, but we're filming it at night. As soon as the newest episode of Watchmen dropped, we've got you covered. We're diving in.
Oh, boy.
We've got some theories.
Yes.
Very excited to talk about how this season might wrap up. I got pretty proud of myself. I pat myself on the back quite a lot. It hurts a little bit. Quickie synopsis for This Extraordinary Being, Season 1, Episode 6. Deep under the influence of nostalgia, Angela gets a first-hand account of her grandfather's journey. It's quite a treat to be able to say each week that this is my favorite episode of the series that we're watching. This was wonderful and heartfelt and tragic, and I called it. Not that they were leaving quite a few breadcrumbs for people who have read the comic since episode 1, since Will showed up.
Yeah.
But he's our boy. Yeah. He's the one who started all of this.
Yeah, he is Hooded Justice, as we've been speculating for a few weeks now. And it's like all stories set in the Watchmen universe, it's a harrowing journey to get there, and he's a conflicted son of a bitch.
Yes, he is.
Like they all are. They're all just conflicted dudes and ladies.
But to kick it off, I did want to say during our watch-along week, you can join 6 p.m. PST when the episode airs over on patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. We don't stream it onto there. You're not going to get around old HBO. No, we watch along with you guys and we speculate as we're going. Yeah. Fun speculation. I just kind of threw out on a whim. It was like, oh, maybe he does the reverse of the vigilante mask and he does it white, because we see in the beginning of this episode with the American Hero Story clip that's going on in the background of the police precinct that they're very clearly the portrayal and what the popular belief is that Hooded Justice is white. Yes. And that's from the comic book as well. And this also confirms, and it had kind of been talked to, you'd seen scenes in the last episode that Hooded Justice had a secret gay relationship with Captain Metropolis. Yes. And basically we explore that in this, him being blackmailed in that clip from American Hero Story, which you mentioned when we were watching it that you'd actually watch this show.
Oh, yeah, actually, it's as goofy and as cheesy and as campy as it is. Listen, don't judge me.
Oh, no.
All right?
Hey,
I'd watch it.
I've watched a good amount of those American shows.
It has not been updated yet on... Oh, yep. So in American Hero Story, Hooded Justice is played by Cheyenne Jackson, who was a regular on American Horror Story for a few seasons, specifically Hotel, but recurring on different seasons. And so I don't know if that's intentional. Of course it's intentional.
Of course it is. Because Ryan Murphy said he was supposed to show up for this.
Yeah, but good casting call, and I like the way they're utilizing American Hero Story, because like American Crime Story and stuff like that, it's supposed to be based off of a true, in this reality true book, which is Night Owl's book, which is referenced in the original Watchmen.
Hollis's book,
which of course in this reality it would be adapted into, and in reality paralleling our own, it'd be adapted into a hit TV series. Of course it would.
Mm-hmm. And it would be heightened just like a lot of those other American stories.
I should be worried that I killed 2 cops, but I'm just worried because Captain Metropolis is cheating on me.
Say cheese. Fight for about 3 minutes. Yeah. Cheese. So good.
It's cheesy. It's good. It's a good bit.
But Angela's going down the rabbit hole.
Yes.
Very much so.
Yes.
And Giovanna Depo is who plays younger Will Reeves to Louis Gossett Jr.
Yeah.
And by the way, we were trying to figure out like where we knew him from, and he's from Overlord, which highly recommend that movie if you like a good old zombie romp in World War II.
Yeah, he's the lead in that.
Nazi Zombies, the movie.
Yes. And he's the lead in that, and he's really good here. He is being inducted into the Force, obviously influenced by loving Bass Reeves.
Even his name.
Yeah. Because he doesn't know the last name. And also, not only is Reeves a good homage to Bass Reeves, but it's also a good homage to Christopher Reeves, who famously portrayed Superman.
Oh, we'll get into that, too.
Yeah. And when he's getting pinned, he's like... stoked, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna be a cop, and he's like, man, it's gonna make you say it. Mm-hmm. And the police chief or whoever skips over him, and the person that is allowed to put a badge on him is Samuel J. Battle, who is a real historical person. He was the first black police officer in New York City.
Which is cool. And like Bass Reeves is a real person who was dramatized in films, but he was a real sheriff in Oklahoma. Samuel J.
Battle has the coolest name. Just want to throw that out there.
I don't know why there hasn't been like a biopic set in the 1930s. Like he's taken down a drug ring. And
maybe.
Were drugs in the 30s? Of course they were.
Yeah, of course they were.
Coca-Cola had cocaine in it.
Yeah, but he has advice for our buddy Will that's basically one is watch out for the Cyclops, which you should. Just in general, if Cyclopses are around, they're probably not great.
And we move on to and you're getting these glimpses of Regina King taking the place of Will.
Yeah, because she's
bouncing back and forth.
She's living these memories. A lot of long, winding takes that we switch between Angela and Will, because Angela's the one reliving these memories
because of nostalgia,
but they're Will's memories.
And by the way, last week we were kind of looking up what nostalgia was, and it was out. Even the perfume was outlawed. So then again, in the '90s, someone they took it, made it a pill form. They put a chip in your brain. Very Black Mirror Christmas episode, White Christmas. They suck out They copy some of your memories and turn them into a pill form that you can just ingest over and over and over and over again.
I will be candid. I'm glad we didn't sit on that too much, because that is a little too much for this reality.
It's like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, if it's an excuse to get this type of episode, whatever. We'll just roll with it.
Was supposed to make you feel and experience feelings of nuclear crisis.
My understanding is it was just perfume. It was just branding.
Oh, no. People become addicted to it, too. Similarly, to be fair, you are very right.
Yeah.
It's like this is individual people's memories sucked out and then turned into a pill form.
Yeah.
Don't do drugs, kids. Definitely don't ingest a full bottle of pills when you don't really know what it is.
Yes, and Jean Smart, Lori, who plays Lori, is trying to get her to sign a waiver to get their stomach pumped, but it's clear that she's kind of trying to still get a handle on what Angela knows. She's not in Angela's corner at the moment.
No.
Yeah.
Now, very clear in the last episode. By the way, still don't know the fate of Looking Glass. I'm hoping he's a badass and he gets a cool scene, but it's the Watchmen universe. That doesn't always happen. Yeah, but back to Will.
Yes.
We get the date scene with his wife or girlfriend at the time, but eventually becomes wife. And right off the bat, you're like, oh, it'd be so cool if we get to see what happened to the baby that he rescued when he was a baby, basically. Yeah. He was 8 years old, 6 years old. He was a tiny little boy. And we find out that this woman is that baby.
Interestingly, in that first scene, she's interviewing him. It appears that she's a reporter, so going back to Superman analogies. So she's kind of like the Lois Lane. And everybody around Will is like, hey, man, this is probably not going to turn out the way you want it to.
Yeah, and also, hey, you do a good job of pretending like what happened didn't happen. You were in one of the biggest massacres in American history that got wiped under the rug, and you are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Hey, you live your life, but you're a cop now, and you need to figure out how to deal with it. But therapy wasn't a big thing, so what was he supposed to do?
So
leads to his first patrol.
Yeah, it leads to his patrol, which we see one of the recurring actors from True Detective, and he's in Barry,
and in Joker,
he plays
Fred, which is the first name that we learn from his character.
So he's just shamelessly
firebombing a Jewish deli.
Yes, and Will takes him in, and that's where we first get our the first hand sign of the Cyclops. And of course, this eventually leads to the discovery that there's corruption within the police force, and it also kind of there's some dream logic involved here, because sometimes when he leaves the station, the door frame is just in the middle of the street. So cool. And then when he's talking to those cops, they're just dragging bodies behind, and it's like, is that happening?
Oh, wait, that was from his memory, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So there's some dream logic within the way the memories work.
True, but it's also a good warning of don't go get a beer with those guys. You know that they're weirdos. Glenn Fleshler plays Fred, and the man that they bring in and immediately see outside of the newspaper stand, which seems like a pretty solid homage, or could be the same newspaper stand that is famous in Watchmen. Yeah. That is a side story that I enjoy.
If that newsstand had stayed around for 40 plus years.
Could have. Yeah. Maybe moved around a little bit, but in this episode, in that scene, the newspaper salesman's like, oh, you guys ever seen a comic book? Yeah. And it's like, look, it's Superman.
He's specifically Action Comics #1. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's the pitches. It's like, oh yeah, he was a baby who was sent down to Earth, and he's which I'm like, was that in I'm sure they did all their homework on this. Was that set up in issue 1 that he's an alien that came down?
Yep.
Oh, that was added later.
Because it's an homage to the Moses story.
Space Moses. All right, that makes sense.
Yeah, he was Space Moses before he was Space Jesus.
And you're starting to get, and you start seeing the similarities between Will's story and Superman's story with what his parents sacrificed to save themselves and their home being fully annihilated.
Yeah.
And
what differentiates it from the Superman story is when the cops take him and they string him up and then they cut him down and they're like, hey, next time we won't cut you down. It's like, cool, I guess. You're talking to me like you're doing me a favor, but maybe don't string me up in the first place.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I mean, I just took the scene as a threat.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was, but yeah.
I get that he's one of the only black police officers on the force, so it's like, what else can he really do in this situation? And in that scene, we get, I'm trying to remember if there's one thing. I'll come back around to it. But following that is when he dons the hood in a positive way, and he takes back that symbol.
Comparatively.
To what happened to him, he's able to stop a mugging and possibly something worse. Yeah. And the action is pretty brutal. It's not American Crime Story or American Hero Story or Zack Snyder Watchmen, but it is very...
It's intense. It's a very specific choice that we, when he's being strung up, it's from his point of view. To just create as minimal amount of distance as possible between the audience and what a nightmare that is.
And the tree even looks very similar to the one that Don Johnson strung up in later in the episodes, different cities. So
different tree, unless the tree's pan-dimensional, unless the tree's Dr. Manhattan. Well, oh my God.
He was there. But also I wanted to mention that visual is very reminiscent of New Frontier, wonderful comic from Darwin Cook, who wrote and drew that entire series. Please check it out.
The John Henry character.
And he created that character, and that visual happens in that book, but it's... both are bad. I'll be honest. There's not I was about to say one was worse than the other, but nope, both are bad.
Yeah. So he creates the Hooded Justice persona. His wife helps facilitate the idea that he needs to, because the only part you see is his eyes. So they put on white face paint so that people think that he's white.
It's the full flip of the vigilante from our world comics.
And even in Watchmen itself with Sister Night. She puts on the black face paint. It's also worth pointing out that his costume looks way cooler than the American Hero Story version.
That goofy
it's hard
dog
to do.
cone head thing.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Bite. It's as a realization, how they realize that in for the TV show is pretty cool, and it works for what it is. But his version of the costume is... It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. And then he goes and takes on the Cyclops, which is associated with the KKK. Because, of course, it is. Because they love those stupid, I'm the Grand Dragon, or I'm the... How do you think... In what reality do you guys think that you're the good guys because you're calling yourselves Dragon and Cyclops and you're setting shit on... Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
All that stuff is in the Bible as the bad guys.
And you're
the bad guys.
And in the explanation, we see the book for mass mesmerism, and I looked that up because it didn't click in my brain what mesmerism was, and I was like, oh, mesmerize. It's mass mesmerism is a term I looked up as we were watching it because it was the idea of using mob mentality to literally change people's ideas. And so I saw that, and then I threw that idea away because I was like, why gotta watch this show because it's so good. And as the episode progresses, he becomes more of a vigilante and even gets headhunted by Captain Metropolis.
Yeah, the actor that plays Captain Metropolis is great. You pointed out that he would be a very good young Vite.
Yes. He looks like if they did the movie over again, like he'd be a good cast.
Exactly, because he's got that kind of like what we would traditionally associate with the classic superhero build. He's blonde. He's kind of like Captain America.
Like
you know
a Greek hero.
Yeah. And he comes into... I actually liked the plan, like, because of my amazing deductive skills, I realized you are helping Hooded Justice.
And also very Superman-esque as well. It's like, oh, Clark Kent must be best friends with Superman, even though Superman comes here all the time.
Yep.
But also there's a flirtation in the scene, literally, but also with the idea that everybody knows who everybody is in that scene, where it's like, oh, you are just the talking piece for Captain Metropolis, so you're just coming by. It's like, yeah, sure. I like that everyone's working at the top of their intelligence, and from there, he's recruiting him for the Minutemen. That Hooded Justice spawned not just costumed adventurers, but other vigilantes in New York and also surrounding cities. So if they come together, they'll be stronger with their numbers.
But also, what we learned is more just branding.
Yeah, it's branding, but also as soon as he lays his eyes on Will Reeves, boy howdy, Captain Metropolis falls for him, and vice versa.
It's interesting. This is in a moment where I kind of wish we could have spent more time in this, because there's a lot to unpack, and maybe we'll unpack it later. But it did remind me, the Captain Metropolis's interaction specifically with Hood Justice reminded me a little bit of the stuff that Get Out touched on, with kind of the possessive nature of progressive racism. Like, oh hey, yeah, we're cool, but it's more like it's this weird.
It's dismissive.
It's a kind of ownership,
and it's like gaslighting too.
Yep, it's already not great because Will's in a committed relationship, which Doom Patrol does a good job of unpacking the complexities of that in a period where that stuff's not okay. But it's already like, oh, but we like the wife, and so he's cheating essentially, so that's a bummer. And then Captain Metropolis is like, yeah, let's do it with our masks on next time. It's like, this guy's not a good dude. This guy's not a good dude, because that's not kinky stuff. He's not as comfortable.
His reasonings for it is not.
No, it's
an obsession.
Yeah, and also like, maybe he's not as comfortable with it as he's like to pretend he is. Whatever.
Also, watching live right now, Danny M, aka Echo Spider, who does a great comic podcast. A little plug. He mentioned that the Watchmen logo in the beginning with a little puff of smoke switches to Minutemen, which I'm guessing is from the episode of American Hero Story, which could be fun. Yeah. But anyways, wanted to mention that. But back to that, we start to see that we see both couples in bed.
Yeah.
And June reveals that she is pregnant.
Yes.
And from there, you're able to see like his guilt, but also his distance from the raising of his own son, because he's spending the entire time during this montage looking in the mirror and constantly putting on makeup, and he barely looks down at his son throughout this whole montage. You can feel that basically she's raising the kid by herself. Yeah. And that he is doing something meaningful because he is taking on the KKK in a world where in a very real world to our own, and so that is important, especially for him and his neighborhood.
And compared to the other Minutemen, because it's interesting. We do see
they dismiss him so fast.
We see the classic snapshot of the group together with, in the background, blurred out, the classic members that pertain to the original Watchmen comic. And so it's interesting because the way it's presented here, it's like he's the only one really doing anything. And then you think back to the comic, it's like it's an interesting dynamic, because you probably have people like Captain Metropolis and Dollar Bill that are like, get out of here, you're not doing anything. But the comedian's doing stuff. It's not good stuff, but he's active.
Yeah. And by the way, we do see that poster from episode 1 for Dollar Bill, that Dollar Bill is the one who sells out, and he goes and decides to be a superhero for banks. And you see that super racist poster. By the way, didn't mention this up top, but the Cyclops imagery for the plan that the KKK has, and we'll start diving into that in a second, but it seems awfully similar to the plan that Ozymandias had, because the squid also had a single eye as well. And there could be a connection there, but we'll get into that
once we start unpacking that. When he goes to a theater where violence occurred, and of course everybody's like, whatever.
In Harlem,
they're all racist. I don't need to get into the specifics. They're racist.
All the cops.
I was getting because when they're talking about what happened, I'm like, is this the beginning of like the psychic stuff that Veidt was doing? And I mean, maybe, but it is using subliminal messaging to create violence, which that's a supervillain scheme if there ever was one.
Yeah, and it's very, and it also has a grounded take to it, even though it is supernatural. Yeah. By the way, when we did talk about this with the Minutemen, but did you hearing Mullock's plan? He's like, he's going to harness the power of the sun, and then it fades out. And it's like, this guy sucks. This guy really sucks. And when we get on the phone where Will calls, I believe it's Ted. I'll call him Captain Metropolis, so you don't have to. You don't need to correct me. It's all good. But and he's basically like, we need to move now because they are going to do something. And in the dismissiveness of it's believable. I bought the scene for what this character's motivations are, and they're all selfish. Yeah, he's like an Indiana Jones type. Though of course that person doesn't do things for the good of other people. Yeah. He does it. He says that, but it's for his own benefit, and that's not what Will is doing.
Yeah, it's all essentially marketing. You know what I mean? And so it's like, Will runs into our old pal Fred, and after he's been tracking the KKK, figuring out what's going on with the Cyclops junk, which interesting Cyclops, the projectors, you know what I mean? The one eye, that stuff like that. And
good point, yeah.
He's like, you know what? I've had enough. And so he just starts shooting people.
By the way, worth mentioning in a comparison to American Hero Story, because we do see a recreation of the sex scene between him and Captain Metropolis in both real life and in the dramatization, but also his first outing in the costume is when he takes on the KKK, which we talked about, but you see in that scene the reverse of what happened in the American Hero Story first episode, where he like kicks in the window and everything. He takes out all the robbers or whatever, and that's Fred's front for the KKK and Cyclops, and it's a butcher shop, and that's when he offers like, "Oh, I can give you some steaks," and he says some racist stuff under his breath. And
going back to earlier, and that's the moment where Laurie, everything freezes, and Laurie tries to basically wake Angela up because she's in a coma, and her husband is Cal shows up to recite something to kind of help her out of the stupor.
And the visualization of the black and white kind of fading away a little bit in the movement on the mouth. I feel like that it's just the entire episode being in black and white was wonderful. It was superb. And I love the use of that where there were little beats of color when the real world was kind of like seeping in. But 100%. the other only color I believe we see is when memories are bleeding together and when the red light goes off once Will comes inside and starts killing the KKK members and getting the film reels.
Which is another interesting visual because he's got his hood, but he's wearing his police uniform. And he just shoots up the place. And he stops him.
And it's crazy that the other cop didn't hear the 7 gunshots that went off in the other room. He was sitting next to a gigantic projector.
Oh, and he had the headphones on. That was my assumption. Because even one of my favorite moments is he goes to shoot him in the back of the head and he clicks. He's like, shit. And then he goes to get him. So I assumed that those headphones are really great.
Yeah, good point. They do at least give you enough credit that like he makes a lot of noise directly behind him and he doesn't even turn around.
Yeah, and so he and then he takes the projector and that's when he comes home
and burns it down. He burns
the building down. Yeah, he burns the whole
in all evidence
down. Yep. And his son is putting on his makeup and he goes to clean it off and then his wife shoves him. He's like, "No, you're the worst. Get out of my life."
Interesting. Yeah. But in that scene, I got that basically the obsession that he has with the Hooded Justice persona and what he's doing trumps a healthy relationship with his own son.
I think that scene, the way that I think that scene was meant to work, in my interpretation, was supposed to be kind of a dream logic because she's acting as if she's like hurting the kid and he's just kind of taking... He's aggressively taking the kid to the sink, but normally you see reactions in that in movies when the guy's about ready to hit him or something. Like it wasn't that heightened. And so that was a scene that felt a little like rushed, but again, we're kind of in memory dream logic, so that argument may have happened in correlation with a different event or some other.
It would have been helpful if there was one argument after, like the son's like older, and it's like, hey, so just so you know, like you need to. I encourage you to do this.
Yeah.
But because we thought it would help you, which he does say in this scene. Yeah. But you need to now check in because that boy doesn't know who you are, and so the only way he's going to connect with you is now he's going to try to put on your makeup.
And it's a cool costume, but like when you see like a little kid with the noose is like, wow, this is troubling.
Yeah,
this is not great.
Will's a bit messed up.
Yeah, because it's Watchmen.
Yeah, and from there we get a little bit of a time skip to, or not a little bit. We go to 2019.
Yeah,
we see how Will strung up the chief.
Which I was suggesting that perhaps we would get Will clones, and by the way, I still think we might get them, but. In this, we do not. He's using the mesmerization technology.
The Cyclops tech.
You know what's interesting? Because Will is a great character, and his explanation, because the implication that Hooded Justice was gay is from the original comics as well. But the imagery and the way they integrate the imagery of his costume into Will's backstory is very organic and makes a lot of sense. And you understand why Will's in this position and you root a lot for Will. And yet when you get to the future, it's still like that exchange is still like complicated because it's like you're still compelling a guy to kill himself, which is just, I mean, there's clearly problems with Judd, but it's still kind of icky.
Yeah. But also, there's problems with Judd that it's like, you have a KKK.
It's my legacy. Why that freight? What?
Which definitely feels like a similar argument. It is different.
Because legacy implies something you want to keep going.
But what I get from it is like when there are people's arguments for like keeping like Confederate flags and everything, where it's like they are different imagery, and I understand that, but there's an ownership to it that is troubling. And then
what I want to say in that is props to the show for being willing to let that be complicated, because that is very true to the original comic, and also I think just dramatically more interesting to say that, like, when it comes to concepts like justice.
Like
complicated.
Like Don Johnson, we are learning that the chief had ties to the 7th Cavalry after White Knight, but he still has ties to them, and he had a KKK hood, and then he addresses Will as "you people," and you're like.
And we saw Judd earlier. Judd it seems like a good guy to hang out with, theoretically. That doesn't keep him from being a bad person. And Will has every justification for being the way he is, but that doesn't necessarily actually justify this action, because especially since we don't specifically know. The implication I got is there's more to it than just that.
Oh, yeah, because there has to be.
I think the implication is that maybe he did stop Cyclops, but there's other... Will has said there's a conspiracy going on. So there's something going on there. We don't know all that stuff. And again, I appreciate the show for being willing to let it be not just... I mean, the episode's black and white, but the morality of it is complicated.
And there's definitely parallels with that, where there's a reason why they shot it that way, not only for the time period, but also because whenever he sees memories at the end, when Angela's just seeing all the memories all at once, like there's some are in color, some are in black and white, and they're there for a reason. And there's something truly haunting where I think it's when he's walking down the street on his first parole and he sees the firebomb into the Jewish deli. There's different music playing, but you see his mother playing the same tune over and over again. It's like, I know Angela's the one who's not doing well right now, but what I'm getting is that that's going through his brain at the same time. So Will is responsible for the death of Don Johnson, and then after that we see Angela wake up in Lady Trieu's office, and she's got a gigantic thing inside of her arm that's injecting stuff into her. No Ozymandias in this episode. Nothing to talk about that.
They did mention that basically there's only one episode this season that Veidt does not show up in, and this is it.
This is it. And I'm excited we saw next week's episode, but before we get into next week's episode, I do want to kind of dive into the theory that I've got so far. So we see important imagery that we saw so far is Don Johnson's first meeting with Will is, as far as we know, it's his first meeting with Will, is you just see a flashlight go on. But when we see the way when Will's using it is that there's a flicker to it that allows him to manipulate and mesmerize and make and compel people to do things that they wouldn't normally do, and that's how he gets the chief to kill himself. And also when he sees Angela for the first time, it's the same thing where the flashlight's just pointed at her. She asks him to turn off the light, but possibly in that little window, he was able to compel him to. Will was able to compel Angela to take him away from that. Maybe that's a reason for why she was so quick to take a person that she did not know and hide him, because it seems out of character. So I would kind of like to explore that, but I want to get into the theory that I had for this episode when it comes to the bigger plan that Lady Trieu and Will have, and I can't go into all of it because I don't know enough yet. But we do know that this show has paralleled Watchmen in a lot of ways, and so we're leading to possibly a big event that's going to have world-changing effects like the squid attack on New York did, and we've been seeing that a lot and seeing what that means. And I'm getting the vibe that possibly them reclaiming the Cyclops tech to be used via technology, specifically the clock tower that's being built in Tulsa, as a way of subduing the populace, similarly the way the squid was able to subdue the nuclear tensions and fears between countries. I'm seeing that Tulsa's maybe the testing ground for that, and Veidt was sent off-world in a kind of like a ruse of like, you get to go live on a planet and you get to be the god of your own domain and and possibly because he would be the only person that would pay attention. Similarly, how they were able to get Dr. Manhattan off Earth so that Veidt could pull off his heist. Or
possibly
his
and I think
Cyclops
you're right
event.
that it has to do with Metropolis, it has to do with the Millennium Clock. But maybe they're going to reveal that the squid was a lie, which I don't personally think would save the world. I think that would cause a lot more harm than good.
There could be two different parties moving at the same time, too. The 7th Cavalry and Keene want to reveal something. And Lady Trieu and Will might be wanting to reveal something. But what we learned with Veidt is that he was the one pulling the strings of everything, even though there were individual parties moving along where you thought that like Moloch might be doing something or the comedian maybe did something. It's like, nope, it always comes back to the one person. So does it come back to Lady Trieu? Does it come back to Will?
Lady Trieu's like, oh, you're awake. All right. I like how just aloof she is to everything.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of imagery to Superman in the show so far, like with Lady Trieu buying the barn when someone crash lands on Earth.
I'm still not completely
Or not
convinced.
someone, sorry, something crash landed. We don't know what it is.
I'm still not completely convinced that we won't see Superman somehow. I just, you know what I mean? Like, ever since you said that, now the comic, and it's like, you know what? Maybe, man.
But there's no way. There's no way.
I don't know that there's no way. I'm saying it's not likely, but I'm not convinced there's no way.
Oh, I have sort of Krypton. And then the new DCEU starts from here, and it's like, this blows, man. This sucks. This sucks so much. Possibly they'd use we were talking about this off air as we were kind of planning out the theory, but possibly the reason for this attack using the Cyclops tech, because the flashlight can't just be a thing that Will kept. He obviously co-opted it from the projector that he took, but possibly the way this could be used as a way to end racism in a way, like the way this was supposed to end
prejudice in general,
possibly, but by doing so, you're taking away either free will or people are weirdly, unknowingly slaves to either like screens or technology, or possibly this is something that they can't really perceive.
Yeah.
It's hard to say because we're still far out, but it could come down to a decision like Laurie and Dr. Manhattan and Rorschach and everyone had where they could have told everyone what happened with the squid, but they chose not to.
Yeah, well, Rorschach did.
No.
Rorschach was going to, but he didn't. He didn't get that option.
I have another little theory. Maybe Vight's the one who tries to tell, and he ends up like Rorschach.
That may be.
Dr. Manhattan still hasn't shown up yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna bet that's gonna be second to last episode stuff that he pops in.
Because like with the scenes we've seen so far of him, is he's at like a fair where there looks like there was a scuffle. So possibly that could be the use of the tech there, and he shows up. And he's like, okay, what's going on? He picks up his own mask. And then later he's at a diner, like, ordering something. And everyone, I guess, just doesn't know what he looks like.
Yeah.
So, or maybe he's covering the way he looks.
See, we got 3 episodes left. So this was the last episode that was sent out to press. So we're in uncharted territory now.
So excited. And please go check out patreon.com/onlystupidanswers and join us for our live watch-alongs, because those have been delightful. And hopefully you can join us next week. That'll be great. And we can join us for our live reviews. Also check out PDpedia as they're diving into the more background of this world and how it functions.
Yes.
And all the mysteries there. And HBO is putting out a Watchmen podcast every 3 episodes. So episodes 1 through 3's breakdown with Damon Lindelof, show creator, and Craig Mazin, creator of Chernobyl and also the Script Notes podcast. They're breaking down all 3 episodes, spoiler-filled. And now a new one's come out because this is episode 6. So I cannot wait to check that out. By the time this is up, you can go listen to that. But also check out our podcast at onlystupidanswers.com. At Sam Basher, everywhere that matters.
At DJ Talks Trash.
And at Only Stupid Answers.
And got the bells from Stupid.
Please like, subscribe, and share this with people who are interested in Watchmen. Let me know what you think of this theory. If you think it's poop, that's okay. Let me know your theories in the comments down below.
Let us know your poop theories.
Please.
Does Dr. Manhattan poop?
Yes. He just teleports them away. They just go away into space dust. Bye.